Chapter 1, Hook the Storm arrived like a warning. A low animal sound in the sky that set the pines shivering and the lights in Greer Hollow blinking once before going out entirely. Mara Bennett drove into that dark the way someone walks into a memory knowingly, despite the ache it would open. The baby inside her kicked, impatient or nervous. She pressed a hand to her belly like it could steady more than 2 lives. The old rental cabin, a stopgap for a life she was trying to stitch from frayed edges, rose up out of the black as though it belonged there, as though it had been waiting. She should have been relieved. She should have felt secure in a place with no ties, no ex-husband's name on the mailbox, no whispering neighbors who remembered the trial. But relief was a future tense she couldn't afford. Tonight she was only present tense, tired, cold, and very aware of the thrum at the base of her skull that had nothing to do with the storm. Then came the sound closer than thunder, softer than a shout. A human in trouble makes one kind of noise. Whatever moved beyond the tree line made a pattern that matched every story she'd ever banned herself from reading. A hurt animal's pain folded into something else. Against reason, Mara left the safety of the cabin's thin walls and walked toward the sound. The snow caught her boots, a fresh hush that ate the storm's edge. Moonlight slanted between trees and painted the world in high-contrast gray. She found him half hidden under a broken spruce, his coat shredded and spattered with dark red. Up close he looked less like a human and more like the idea of one. Bone-etched too sharply, eyes that glowed reflected under the moon, jaw clenched against an ache that made him breathe through his teeth. Instinct told her to run. Instinct had kept her alive all these months. But an older instinct, maybe the one that still remembered her grandmother's hands, made her peel off her scarf and wrap it around his shoulder like a bandage. "Hold still," she said, because words were scaffolding and because the sound he'd made could not belong exclusively to a wolf. It carried a humanness that made her chest ache. He looked at her with those impossible eyes, and the world rearranged. She saw the shape of a wolf's muzzle, the fanged edge of teeth, and then the man whose mouth trembled as if turning back from a snarl. His voice, when it came, was rough, a gravely thread pulled tight. "Don't get close. You need help." She didn't give him the chance to push her away. Her fingers trembled as she cleaned the worst of the blood with snow, listening to the ragged cadence under his breathing. In, out, in someone using breath to count down from panic. "Are you alone?" He flinched so hard his shoulder hit a branch. "No," he admitted. "Not anymore." The lie was small and huge all at once. It suggested danger threaded through the forest in a way her past had taught her to dread. Mara's thumb pressed hard against the cloth on his wound. She learned later that pressure helped more than anything else, but at the time she only knew that if she did nothing, she would be a coward. Being pregnant hadn't softened her bones, it had sharpened them. She could not stand to be witness to more suffering. He introduced himself with a name that tasted like iron, Cormac Hale. It was the name he used when his human voice worked. It fit him in a way she couldn't parse, ancient, territorial, claiming. He watched her with a suspicion that was more animal than man, and she felt something like a current between them, sudden and undeniable, the kind of pull some women read about and then blamed on marketing. The word that tried to root itself in her chest was mate, but she shoved it down. There were too many reasons to ignore fate. The baby, the past she was running from, the sense that everything good in the world could break if she wasn't careful. "You shouldn't be out here," she told him, though she wondered whether that rule applied more to her or to him. His laugh was a rasp that had no humor. "Funny. Most of them shouldn't." He told half-truths and then froze when something moved in the trees, too quick, too hungry. He shifted in a way that made the hair along Mara's arms lift, not an honest change but a conscious hardening, like a man bracing for a blow he refuses to name. They were not alone. Something else tracked through the snow, and when it came into the moonlight, Mara realized it wasn't a single shadow but several, eyes white and cold, watching. "Pack?" Her voice was smaller than she meant. Her legs wanted to run. The baby answered with a somersault that made her gasp. Cormac's jaw tightened into a line of granite. "Not the friendly kind." He tried to stand and nearly collapsed. He looked at her again, this time with an expression so raw it made her chest ache. "You shouldn't have seen me." Too late, the storm had already stolen their privacy. He swore under his breath, something in him snapping, and the man-wolf inside him rose like a tide. Mara felt it too, the world bending into a narrower focus where only immediate choices mattered. He grabbed her hand as though he could steady himself by touching something human. "Get back to the cabin," he ordered, but it wasn't urgent so much as pleading. She wanted to ask the obvious, dangerous question. Why would a dangerous thing plead with her? She wanted to demand who he was and why his blood smelled of iron and old promises. But the pack's approach answered enough: the crunch of snow, the low war chorus of muzzles and paws, and the knowledge that whatever choice she made now would follow them. She followed him anyway, not because she trusted him, but because this was what she'd learned to do with life. Find safety in the stranger's hand when home had betrayed her. He half carried, half dragged her through the trees, the storm lashing at their faces, until the cabin's outline reappeared like a promise. He set her down across the threshold as though setting a precious thing on a shelf. "Stay," he said. "Lock the door. Don't open for anyone." "I can't." Her instinct to question ran headlong into the memory of a ring on a finger that had once promised forever and then chosen someone else. Her ex's shadow followed her like a scent she couldn't scrub away. The thought of him hiding, choosing, breaking, replayed every day. If this man, this injured, dangerous, impossible man asked her to hide, it didn't feel like favor. It felt like a demand from fate. Cormac's face softened for the briefest of seconds, showing a vulnerability that cracked the armor he wore. "You shouldn't be alone in a storm like this," he said. "And especially not with a baby on the way." The words landed like a vow and like a prophecy. Mara wrapped her hands around her belly as if to keep the quiet life inside her steady. Against the thrum in the trees, against the thud of her own heart, something calmed. A sliver of trust slid into place like a key. Outside, the pack circled and whispered in a language Mara had only ever heard in nightmares. Inside, the cabin held two wounded people and an unspoken possibility. That one choice tonight, small and reckless, could bend the arc of both their lives. When the first paw landed on the porch and a throat gave a question somewhere between a growl and a call, Cormac stepped toward the door with the kind of slow power that made the floorboards complain. "Don't be afraid," he said to her, but his voice carried the weight of a confession. "If you stay, you will learn what it's like to be chosen and what it costs when someone else chooses wrong." Mara's laugh was a thin thing. She didn't yet know whether he meant himself or someone she already knew. The storm drew the world tight. The night's first true danger came not from the pack at the door, but from the whispered shape of a story yet to be told. A man who had once chosen wrong, a woman carrying the proof of another life, and a future that might hinge on whether one alpha could change his mind. The door trembled under the weight of the first challenge. In the frozen hush, Mara realized she had two options: lock the door and ignore the animal at the threshold, or open it and offer something neither of them could retrieve if it broke. Her hand found the old brass knob the way one hand finds a lifeline. She turned it. The storm howled like a verdict. Chapter 2: Suspicion and amp curiosity. When Mara opened the door, the cold bit at her face like a question. 100 white eyes swiveled toward the light, bodies a blur of fur and muscle, breath smoking in the doorway. For a heartbeat, everything narrowed to a single animal heartbeat. Theirs. Then Cormac stepped forward, and the pack's chorus shifted, not wholly obedience but a careful negotiation of rank. He moved with an economy of motion that said alpha without theatrics, no towering posture, only a measured weight that made the closest wolf lower its head. "This is private property," he said, his voice low enough that the snow swallowed most of it. "Leave." One of the wolves, bigger, scarred along the shoulder, snapped a warning, and the air hummed with tension. Mara could smell musk and blood and something older, like dust from a tomb. Her own fear made her small and human and very loud in her ears. "Protect the baby," her grandmother's voice repeated, as clear as if she stood beside her. "Protect the child." "He's injured," Mara called out before she could chisel her fear into silence. "He needs help." The scarred wolf bared teeth at her as if she had said a sin. "This is not your fight, human." Cormac's hand stayed on the threshold, steady. He didn't correct the wolf. Instead, he looked at Mara in a way that read as warning and invitation at once. "If they find me here, I answer for it," he said. "Not because I'm afraid of their teeth, because if I lead their anger to you, they'll hurt what's inside you. Go inside. Lock the door." Mara's fingers closed on the doorknob like a promise. She wanted to ask who would hurt a pregnant woman. She wanted to ask why a pack of wolves cared enough to hunt a man into the woods. Instead, she obeyed because something in his eyes kept her from doing otherwise. She shut the door, bolted it with hands that trembled, and watched through the frosted glass as Cormac turned away from the pack and, with a motion born of too many winters, collapsed onto the porch steps. Inside, the cabin hummed with the quiet of old plaster and thrift store curtains. Mara set a kettle on the stove because the motion calmed her. Steam was a proof she could still make small, necessary things happen. She draped the spare blanket over Cormac's shoulders when she later carried him inside like a secret, and noticed how the wood smelled of pine resin and old books. He closed his eyes when the warmth touched him, but his hands found her sleeve in a reflex that shivered across her skin. "Why are they after you?" she asked, not waiting for an answer that made more sense than the moon. Cormac's pupils narrowed, as if the question cost him something to answer. "Pack politics," he said finally. "Old debts. I took a risk I shouldn't have." "Which risk?" He met her stare, but didn't fully meet it. The scar along his temple tightened under his skin when the steam fogged the air between them. "I chose wrong once," he said. "Years ago. It wasn't the kind of wrong that gets you banished overnight. It collects, it grows teeth." Mara's throat closed. She knew wrongs that accrued like debt-small betrayals that turned into lawsuits, messy divorces that shredded reputations. Her ex had been that kind of wrong, charming in court, colder at home, decisive in abandoning. She kept her fingers to her mouth so she wouldn't name him. "What happened?" Cormac swallowed. For a moment he looked like a man who had tried to bury a pain so deep he could only feel it as physical ache. "There was someone I loved before," he said slowly. "Someone who should have been. Someone I should have chosen differently." The words scraped him raw. "She left. Or maybe I let her go. Either way, the pack needed a choice and I made one that satisfied them in the moment. But the price came later." The kettle hissed, the sound a punctuation. Mara wrapped both hands around the mug she poured for him, feeling him look at the way her fingers cradled something warm. "Is that why they hunt you?" she asked. "Because of a lover?" "Because of bloodlines," he said. The answer landed like a stone. "Because they think my choices endangered pack lineage. Because some things are about more than two people. They have rules, old rules. They're merciless when someone breaks the script." Mara thought of laws, of verdicts that couldn't be appealed. Her life had been a testament to the fact that rules bent reality and people could be ruined by them. "So they want you gone." "Not gone." He let the word hang with an accuracy that made her stomach drop. "Reclaimed, replaced, punished." The cabin felt smaller, as if the snow outside had thickened and pressed inward. Mara's first instinct was to be practical. "You can hide," she said. "Stay here. I'll call someone if I need to. I know people. Not like you do, but—" He smiled, a brief lift of mouth that didn't reach his eyes. "You'd call the wrong people. They'd come with badges and questions, and wolves don't care for police reports." "Right." She glanced at the window where the wolves' silhouettes were ghosted by moonlight. "Then what? You fight them?" "Sometimes fight is the only language they'll accept." Cormac's hand moved to rest against her belly before either of them fully acknowledged the gesture. Mara's first thought was to snatch her abdomen away, but then she felt the gentleness in his tucha guarding that contradicted the predator everyone else saw. He inhaled, and the breath hit him with a visible recoil. "You smell different," he said softly, not looking up. "Old blood. Lineage." Mara's breath hitched. "What does that mean?" "It means you've been marked by something beyond a regular human life," he said. His fingers drummed awkward, careful on the cloth of her shirt. It means the child you carry is not just any child, and it means there are those in the shifter world who will bend themselves to see what that child might become. Mara's heartbeat felt like a drum alone in a canyon. "Are you saying—" "I'm saying be careful whom you trust," he interrupted. "And I'm saying, I need to see the baby." The words startled her so severely she almost spilled the mug. "You need what?" Cormac's face was a map of contradictions. Hunger and fear, longing and a raw apology that came without words. "I don't expect to be welcomed," he said. "I don't expect acceptance. But if the child is what my pack fears and what my past has tangled around, I cannot walk away from that. Not anymore." Mara's laugh fractured into something like a sob. Trusting this man felt like walking across an ice field toward a thin, uncertain shelter. But there was a strange, unignorable thread pulling at her from the night he had collapsed at her doorstep, from the way his hand had found her belly, from the sound he made when he said the word lineage. Perhaps it was the residue of too many fairy tales told in the dark when she had needed stories to sleep. Perhaps it was something older, older than her fear, that recognized a promise. "What if I say no?" she asked. He didn't flinch. "Then I beg." His voice was small and enormous in the same breath. "I beg to know what this life will be. I beg to know whether I destroyed something when I chose wrong. And if I can't have that—" He swallowed. "Then I will do whatever it takes to keep your secret safe." Mara watched him, the temperature of the cabin shifting around his words. Outside, far too near, the pack settled like a storm coming to rest. Inside, two wounded people circled the fragile heat of new hope. The question of whether to trust him was no longer theoretical. He had come to her door bleeding and weary, and he had asked to see what she carried, an audacious, foolish request that carried with it a trace of the fate that would not be ignored. Her hand rested on the bump that had stubbornly become their secret. She didn't yet know whether she would let him see, or whether opening that door would invite more danger than she could bear. But something in the cadence of his plea, so unlike the confident commands of the men who had hurt her before, made her lower the cup and gnawed a sliver, careful and small. "One choice at a time," she said. Cormac's relief was not theatrical. It was a soft exhale, almost a prayer. "Thank you," he murmured. "That's all I ask." The wolves outside shifted, and in the pause the cabin felt like the world itself holding its breath for a future unmade, for a past that might be repaired, and for a child who had already begun to change destinies. Chapter 3, Building Trust. The storm eased by morning, but the world outside the cabin looked scraped raw, as if the night had peeled something back and left only truth behind. Snow draped the pines like fresh bandages. The wind had finally stopped weeping through the eaves. Mara woke to the quiet with her heart already racing, the memory of wolves circling her home echoing like a bruise along her ribs. Cormac slept in the old armchair by the fire, his body slumped, his breathing deep but uneven. Even in rest he looked wary, coiled, as if a nightmare could pull him to his feet before consciousness caught up. She watched his chest rise and fall, unexpectedly aware of how the sight of him alive relieved something she had hidden from herself. Last night she had invited a stranger into her cabin, a man leaking blood and secrets, a man who spoke the word pack like a lived wound. She should have been terrified. Instead, she felt something worse, the fragile pull of trust she couldn't yet afford. The baby kicked again, impatient, as if agreeing. Mara rubbed her belly. "You and your timing," she whispered. Cormac stirred. A low sound rumbled from his chest, almost a growl but softened by sleep. His eyes cracked open wolf yellow at first, then slowly shifting into human brown, like the sunrise warmed them from inside. "You were dreaming," she said. He blinked hard and sat upright, every movement careful, restrained. "I don't dream," he said hoarsely. "Not anymore." "That was definitely a dream. No," he corrected, rubbing his temple. "That was memory." Mara considered challenging him, but she understood too well the kind of experiences that returned dressed as nightmares. She poured him the tea she'd prepared and handed the mug to him. Their fingers brushed accidentally, but it lingered. A spark. a tremor. Cormac froze, not because of the heat of the mug, because of her. His voice sank. It's stronger today. What is? The pull. He didn't elaborate, and she didn't ask, though she felt it, that faint thread between them humming under her skin. She could blame adrenaline, exhaustion, fear. But none of those were looking at her like she was both danger and salvation. I need to check outside, Mara said, breaking eye contact before the silence swallowed her. See if the pack is still out there. Cormac stood too quickly and winced, a hand flying to his wounded shoulder. No, I'll do it. You can barely stand. I'll manage. His voice softened. Please, Mara. If one of them is still lingering, I can't risk them scenting you. Or the child. The child. Not your child. Not the baby. The child. There was an unspoken significance in the word one she wasn't sure she wanted to unravel. Mara wrapped her cardigan tighter and sighed. Fine, but if you collapse in the snow, I'm dragging you back by your hair. Cormac's lips twitched into something resembling a smile. I believe you would. The clearing, he stepped outside and inhaled deeply, the cold morning air crystallizing at the edges of his breath. Mara hovered behind him in the doorway, ignoring his earlier warning because distance from him felt strongly like weakness. Cormac's eyes scanned the tree line, alert. They're gone. You're sure? He nodded, but there was no relief in his posture. Gone doesn't mean uninterested, he added quietly. Mara shivered. What do they want from you? His jaw tightened. What they always wanted, obedience. Bloodlines preserved, mistakes corrected. And which of those are you guilty of? Cormac didn't answer. He walked to the edge of the porch, testing his strength. His shoulders squared, alpha habit surfacing without effort. The kind of presence that made the air pay attention. Mara watched him, trying to understand the contradiction. A man who was both shield and danger, both guilty and grieving. You said they'd hurt me, she began. Why? I'm human. I don't have anything to do with your pack. He turned to her slowly. Mara. Humans can carry shifter blood without knowing. Her heart stuttered. Are you suggesting ENO? His voice was gentle. Not you. The implication landed. The child. Her lungs tightened. You're saying the baby might not be human. Cormac said nothing. Silence did the speaking for him. Mara backed up a step, her hand flying protectively to her belly. No. No, that's impossible. His expression flickered with sympathy, real and unsettling. Not impossible. Unlikely. Yes. Rare. But fate isn't fond of rules. She shook her head. The father is human. Are you sure, Cormac murmured, that the father you think you know is the one whose blood took root? The world tilted. A flash of courtrooms, accusations, betrayal. Her ex-husband's voice, a man who had lied so smoothly she had questioned her own memories. A man who had walked out the door and into someone else's arms while Mara held a positive pregnancy test. She sank onto the porch step. Cormac crouched once, then sat beside her, close but not touching. Respectful, careful, dangerous. I know you don't trust me yet, he said softly, eyes fixed on the forest. But your scent changed in the last month. That only happens when a shifter's lineage touches a life. The pack will notice it too. They already have. Mara swallowed hard. If they think the baby is special, what happens? Cormac's voice dropped to a growl. Then they'll try to claim it. Fear clamped her throat shut. He turned fully to her then, his expression raw and unguarded. I won't let them. A fragile shiver moved through her. Why? You don't even know me. I know enough. His voice cracked not from weakness, but from memory. I know what it's like to lose someone because I was too late. I won't repeat that mistake. Her pulse thudded painfully. This? Someone you loved, she whispered. The one you chose wrong? He exhaled shakily, the confession hovering. Yes. And the consequences of that choice echo even now. What happened to her? He stared at the tree line as if expecting ghosts between the branches. "I rejected her," he said finally, "because the pack demanded I take someone stronger, someone with a better lineage. And I listened. I lied to myself. I convinced us both it was for the good of the pack. And she left?" Mara asked softly. "No." His voice fractured. "She stayed until the night she realized she was pregnant. Then she ran." Mara's breath caught. "She begged me to choose her," Cormac continued, voice thickening. "And I was a coward. By the time I changed my mind, I couldn't find her. I searched for months." A tremor moved through his hands. "I still don't know where she went," he whispered, "or what became of the child she carried." Mara's heart cracked open, not with romance, not yet, but with understanding. Pain recognized pain. "I'm sorry," she said. He looked at her then, and something in his gaze of pain, longing, unanswered questions made her look away. Cormac inhaled slowly. "So when I tell you I won't let the pack take your child, understand that I mean it, even if it costs me everything." Her breath trembled. "Why?" she whispered. He didn't hesitate, because fate rarely repeats itself unless we're too blind to learn. Later, as they shared the silence of the small kitchen, Mara felt the shift. A slow, tentative trust beginning to form. Not a bond, not destiny, but something quieter, like the first crack of sunlight after a storm. Cormac turned his head at the sound of the kettle warming again. "I should leave tonight," he said. The words hit her like a cold wind. "Why?" "Because danger follows me. Staying here puts you and the child directly in its path." "Then stay," she said before she could stop herself. "At least until you heal." His breath caught. Hope flickered across his face, then caution smothered it. "Mara, if I stay, things will become more complicated." She met his gaze, her voice steady despite the fear. "I think they already are." A long silence passed between them. Cormac's eyes softened. "One night," he whispered. "I'll give you one more night." But they both knew fate had already decided otherwise. And outside, somewhere in the quiet snow, a lone wolf's howl broke the morning, warning or calling. Mara couldn't tell which, but she felt unmistakably that the story between them had only just begun. Chapter 4, Dangerous Obstacles. The afternoon light slanted weakly through the cabin windows, turning the air a muted gold. Mara's nerves felt stretched, thin like piano strings wound too tight. Cormac moved through the small living room with a quiet intensity, every motion deliberate, every inhale testing the air for danger she couldn't sense. He paused at the window again. "You've checked 3 times," Mara said, trying for dry humor and missing the mark. Her voice came out small. "And I'll check 30 more, Cormac replied, not looking back. "Wolves don't simply disappear. Not when they've made a point of finding someone." "Someone," she echoed. "You mean you?" His jaw flexed. "Me. And now you." She wanted to deny it, wanted to believe danger wasn't creeping closer with every passing hour, but the truth wove itself into the quiet of the cabin. She could feel something pressing at the edges of the forest. Watching. Waiting. Cormac exhaled slowly, finally stepping away from the window. "We need a plan." "We?" Mara repeated. "I shouldn't even be part of this. I'm just or not just anything," he said sharply, turning to face her. "Not anymore." Her heartbeat tripped. "Because of the baby?" His silence confirmed what she feared and didn't fully understand. Cormac approached her slowly, gently, as though sudden movements might shatter her. "If the pack suspects a shifter lineage in your child, they will act. Whether they're right or wrong won't matter." Her hands instinctively folded over her belly. "I didn't ask for this." He softened. "I know. And I don't believe the father is Mara." He stepped closer. "Human fathers can carry dormant bloodlines. Shifter traits skip generations, sometimes 2, sometimes 10. Your ex might not have known, or maybe someone in his line did." She flinched at the mention of her ex. The man who had sworn he'd never abandon her then did exactly that the moment responsibility entered the picture. He lied about everything else, she murmured. Why not this too? Cormac's eyes flashed with something fierce, protective. If he left you, he doesn't deserve to know the truth. Mara snorted softly. He left for someone else. My pregnancy just sped up the timeline. Cormac went very still. He left, he repeated, voice dangerously quiet, while you were carrying his child. She nodded, embarrassed by the tears burning behind her eyes. He chose his ex, the one he swore he was done with. The moment things got complicated, he ran back to her. Cormac's expression darkened with something primal, fury, and underneath, sympathy so raw it made her breath catch. Then he was never worthy of you. Her throat tightened. No one had ever said that to her. Not even she believed it. Before she could respond, a heavy thud hit the side of the cabin. Mara froze. Cormac's head snapped toward the sound, eyes shifting brown, bleeding into molten amber. His muscles went taut, tendons standing out against his neck. Inside, he ordered, his voice not quite human. I am inside. Further in. Another thud. Something scraped along the cabin walls low, testing, deliberate. Not the wind. Not an animal. A warning. Cormac, she whispered, backing up until her spine hit the kitchen door frame. Is it them? He didn't answer. He didn't need to. The cabin felt suddenly too small, too fragile. The wooden boards beneath her feet creaked like bones under pressure. Cormac positioned himself between her and the door. If anything happens, go to the bedroom, lock the door, and do not come out. No matter what you hear, Cormac, promise me. Mara's fear choked her. I can't hide while you can, he growled, breaking through her panic with a ferocity aimed at protection, not anger. You will. I won't let them near you, or the child. Something outside hoofed a wet, guttural sound that made her skin crawl. Cormac inhaled, sharp. It's one of the scouts. They tracked me. Just one? For now. He moved to the front door, barefoot, half-heeled, and yet radiating the kind of authority that made Mara think the wolves outside should be afraid of him, not the other way around. She reached out impulsively. Don't go. He paused, turning to look at her. The anger slipped, something softer remained. Mara, I don't want you to get hurt again, she whispered. His eyes warmed. You worry for people too easily, and you push people away too easily. That startled him. A flicker pain passed through his expression before he masked it. He stepped close enough that she could feel the heat of his body, smell the storm still lingering in his skin. I'm not used to being worried about, he murmured. Well, get used to it. The faintest smile touched his mouth. Outside, the scratching intensified. The smile vanished. Cormac moved with sudden, predatory purpose. He unbolted the door and stepped onto the porch before she could protest, closing the door behind him but not fully. A narrow crack remained. Mara pressed her eye to it, breath fogging the gap. Cormac stood in the snow, bare feet planted, shoulders squared. A wolf massive ash-gray stalked along the tree line, its eyes glowing with intelligent malice. The wolf snarled. Cormac didn't flinch. You're not supposed to be here, he growled back. The wolf gave a low rumble, lifting its head as if scenting the air. Its gaze snapped to the cabin, to her. Mara's stomach dropped. Cormac stepped in its path, blocking the line of sight. He bared his teeth, not shifting, but close, the sound tearing from deep in his chest. She is not yours. The wolf lunged. Cormac met it halfway. The impact rattled the porch boards. Snow exploded in a white halo around them as jaws snapped and muscle slammed against muscle. Cormac fought like a creature, divided man in shape, wolf in instinct, dodging, striking, forcing the larger wolf back with brute strength and something older than violence, claiming. Mara couldn't breathe, couldn't look away. After a brutal clash, the ash-gray wolf retreated, limping, issuing a final warning growl before disappearing into the trees. Cormac watched until the forest swallowed the beast, then sagged to one knee, breath ragged. Mara threw the door open. Cormac! He looked up, pain tightening his jaw. "I'm fine. You're bleeding. I'll heal. That's not the point." He swayed. She caught him under the arm, guiding him inside. Up close, his skin was fever hot. His pulse thudded beneath her fingers, too fast. "Mara." His voice rasped. "They know." "Know what?" "That you're pregnant." He swallowed hard. "And that the child might be shifter-born." She felt the blood drain from her face. "They'll come back," he said. "Then we'll run," she whispered. He shook his head weakly. "Running won't stop them." "Then what will?" He lifted his gaze to hers, broken, hopeful, terrified. "Trust." Her breath caught. "Trust me," he said. "Let me protect you. Let me stay." The confession hung between them, fragile and dangerous. A knock, soft, hesitant, rattled the back door. Both of them froze. Cormac's eyes widened. "It's not the pack." "Then who?" The knock came again. A woman's voice, trembling. "Mara, please open the door. I need help." Mara's heart slammed into her ribs. She knew that voice. Her world tilted, because it belonged to the last person she ever expected to see at her doorstep. Her ex's lover. The woman he left her for. And she was crying. "Mara," the voice broke on a sob. "He's gone, and someone is hunting me too." Cormac's expression hardened with dread, and Mara understood just for one breathless moment that her past and Cormac's were no longer separate stories. They were colliding, and fate was just beginning. Chapter 5, The Secret Unveiled. For a moment, Mara could only stare at the back door as if the wood itself had whispered a ghost. The wind moaned softly around the cabin, but everything inside her felt abruptly, terrifyingly still. "He's gone. Someone is hunting me too." Shayla's voice broke again outside, thin as cracked porcelain. "Mara, please. I didn't know where else to go." Mara's stomach twisted with something sharp. Anger? Fear? Old betrayal resurfacing? She didn't know. Only that this was the woman her ex had run to. The woman he had chosen over her, over their unborn child, over everything they'd built. And now she was at her doorstep. Cormac steadied himself against the counter, his skin pale beneath the bruises, his breathing uneven. But his eyes, those molten amber eyes, were alert, sharp. "Don't open the door," he warned softly. "I have to," Mara whispered. "No, you don't." His voice deepened with a growl that brushed the edges of humanity. "She could be bait." Mara swallowed. "It's Shayla. She's just human." Cormac's jaw flexed. "You thought the same about yourself." The truth of that hit her harder than she wanted to admit. Another knock, quieter this time, but edged with desperation. "Please, Mara. Please. I'm so sorry." Mara hesitated, torn between compassion and caution. Cormac limped closer. "Look at me." She did. "You owe her nothing," he said. "Not after what she and your ex did." The words sliced open wounds she thought were scabbing over. "But," he added, softer now, "I can smell her fear. It's real. And something followed her here." Mara's breath caught. "Something? Not someone." Cormac didn't answer, which was answer enough. He moved toward the door with a steadiness that contradicted his exhaustion. "Stand back." Mara obeyed, stepping behind the kitchen table. Her heart pounded violently against her ribs as Cormac unlatched the door just an inch, just enough to see. Shayla stood drenched from the melting snow, hair tangled, coat torn as though she'd sprinted through brambles. Her eyes darted over Cormac's shoulder and landed on Mara. "Oh, God," she whispered. "You're alive." Mara blinked. "Why wouldn't I be?" Shayla opened her mouth, then looked past Cormac, out into the trees. Her entire body went rigid. Cormac reacted instantly. He grabbed Shayla's arm and yanked her inside, slamming the door shut with a force that rattled the frame. "Get down," he snarled. Shayla collapsed to the floor, sobbing. Mara rushed over hesitant, but unable to ignore the raw terror on the woman's face. "What happened?" Mara asked, crouching beside her. Shayla clutched her arm. "Something's out there. Something not human. And Liam he—" Mara flinched at her ex's name. "Liam what?" Shayla choked on her breath. "He disappeared 2 nights ago, right after the full moon." Cormac froze. Mara's pulse hammered. "You think he left you?" "No," Shayla cried. "He would never. He promised he'd never leave again, but the night after he came home from the woods, he was off, different. He kept saying he heard something calling him. And when I woke up, he was gone, just gone." Mara exchanged a sharp look with Cormac. This wasn't good. Not at all. Shayla wiped her face with trembling fingers. "I followed his tracks into the woods. I shouldn't have, I know, but I thought he needed help, and then something started chasing me. I didn't see it, I only heard it, this low growling, like it was circling me. I ran until I found your cabin." She looked up at Mara, broken and terrified. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Mara's heart twisted. Not forgiveness, but recognition. Shayla looked the way Mara had felt during her own escape months ago, hunted by something she couldn't name. Cormac knelt in front of Shayla, ignoring the pain that flashed across his face. "When did Liam start hearing voices?" Shayla blinked. "Voices? No, not voices, just a pull. He said he felt drawn to the woods, like someone was waiting for him." Cormac let out a slow, heavy breath. Mara felt the shift before he spoke. "He's shifting." Shayla stared. "WH what?" Cormac's gaze hardened. "Liam isn't missing. He's turning." Shayla shook her head violently. No, that's no. He's human. So was I, once," Cormac murmured. Mara felt her pulse stop, then restart too quickly. "Are you saying Liam has shifter blood?" Cormac nodded. "Dormant, probably. Triggered by something. A full moon. A threat. A child conceived under certain conditions." Shayla paled. "A child." Mara's lungs constricted. "He got you pregnant?" Shayla shook her head. "No. No, we mean yes, I was. But—" Her voice cracked. "I lost it." Pain flickered in Cormac's eyes. Not pity. Understanding. "What caused the miscarriage?" he asked quietly. Shayla swallowed hard. "He changed. Not fully, but his Aisha's strength, he snapped the bed frame like it was nothing. I screamed. He didn't even remember doing it. And the next day, I started bleeding." Mara closed her eyes, horror sinking into her bones. "So Liam's bloodline awakened," Cormac said. "And it rejected the transition. You were never meant to carry a shifter child." Shayla sobbed into her hands. Mara's eyes drifted toward her own stomach. Cormac spoke before she could form the question. "You," he said softly, "were." Mara looked up sharply. "What does that mean?" "It means your body accepted what hers could not," he murmured. "Which means the child you carry has a purpose. A destiny. One the pack will not ignore." Shayla blinked through her tears, confusion clouding her face. "What child?" Mara pressed a trembling hand to her belly. Shayla stared. "Mara? Your—" Mara nodded. And Shayla broke. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, voice crumbling. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." If Liam had stopped," Mara said, gentler than she expected. "This isn't your fault." "No," Cormac cut in firm. "But what hunted you might be." Shayla trembled. "Is it after me? Or Liam?" Cormac stood slowly, painfully. "Both." Mara rose too. "And now that you've come here, it'll be after us." Shayla covered her mouth. Cormac's shoulders squared. "We have to move. Tonight." Mara stiffened. "Move? Where?" "Somewhere the pack won't follow." His voice was steel. "A place they fear." Shayla clutched the table. There's nowhere wolves fear. Cormac met Mara's gaze. There is, he said quietly, my old territory, the hollow den, a sanctuary carved by blood and oath. Mara felt her chest tighten. But you said you were banned from your pack's land. I am. He hesitated. But the den is older than the pack, older than all of us. It answers to the rightful alpha and the one he wronged. Mara felt something in the room shift like fate turning its head. Cormac, she whispered, who did you wrong? He looked at her with a depth of regret that pierced bone. You? He said quietly. And the world seemed to tilt, breathless and wild, as the truth began to unspool. Because suddenly, impossibly, she wasn't sure he was speaking metaphorically. Chapter 6, Betrayal or Sacrifice. The words hung in the air like frost. You. Mara blinked at Cormac, waiting for some clarification, some tether back to reality, but none came. His gaze stayed fixed on her, unwavering, wounded, and unbearably certain. Shayla shivered on the kitchen floor, looking between them in confusion. What does he mean, Mara? But Mara couldn't answer. She couldn't breathe. I didn't. She shook her head, stepping back until her spine met the wall. I didn't even know you then. No, Cormac whispered, voice raw. But fate did. The room pressed in around her. The fire crackled softly. Snow slid down the window in slow, melting trails. Everything familiar felt suddenly unreal. Cormac, she said carefully, start explaining. Now. He dragged a hand through his hair, wincing at the movement. The hollow den recognizes soul-bonded pairs, fated mates. Even before they meet in the flesh, the den knows their energy, their lineage, their future children. Mara's heart stumbled. But we're not. When I rejected my first mate, he continued, voice thickening. The den withdrew its favor. My pack blamed me for breaking destiny. They said the bond had been wrong all along, that the true future mate hadn't yet appeared. Mara stared at him. What does this have to do with me? Cormac swallowed hard. The night I broke the bond, the den howled. My alpha, my father, said it meant fate had shifted. That somewhere out there, the rightful bond had already begun forming, with someone who was not a wolf. Mara froze. Shayla covered her mouth. You're saying, Mara whispered slowly, that I'm the mate you rejected before I ever existed in your life? Cormac flinched. Not rejected you. Rejected fate's first attempt at bringing you into my path. I chose someone else. I chose wrong. Mara sank into a chair. That makes no sense. I didn't even know shifters were real. I had no ties to you. I wasn't part of your world. Fate doesn't care about worlds, he murmured. Only threads. Shayla stared between them. Is this normal shifter stuff? No, Cormac said. It's ancient, rare, and deadly. The den doesn't easily forgive a broken bond. Mara pressed her hand to her mouth. And you think I'm that bond? He nodded once. And the child you carry is the proof. Silence swallowed the room. Mara nearly laughed a brittle, shocked sound. Cormac, my child is human. He's not yours. Hezerex's? Cormac asked quietly. Are you sure? Yes, she snapped. Then softer, I mean. I was sure. Shayla whispered. Liam never mentioned that he had dormant shifter blood? Cormac finished. Of course not. Most humans with hidden lineage don't realize until something activates it. Trauma, a near-death experience, or conceiving a fated child, Mara whispered. Her stomach twisted. The baby fluttered under her hand, alive, unaware of the storm gathering around them. Cormac, she said, barely audible, if this is true, if my child is tied to you somehow, then what does that make Liam? Cormac's expression darkened. A vessel fate used to correct my mistake. Shayla paled. That means Liam didn't choose to leave. Something pulled him. Yes, Cormac said. The shift drove him. And if he's partially transformed, unstable, unclaimed, he'll be dangerous. To himself, to others, to you both. Mara felt her pulse spike. Then we have to find him. Cormac shook his head. Not without securing you first. Mara slammed her hand on the table. I'm not hiding while someone else suffers because of a world I didn't even know existed. Mara, he said, stepping toward her. You don't understand how ruthless an unclaimed shifter becomes, especially one whose bloodline wasn't meant for the transformation. Shayla swallowed hard. He wasn't himself when he left. His eyes, they were wild. Cormac closed his eyes briefly. The pack may already be hunting him. And if they find out about your baby first, my baby is mine, Mara snapped. Not theirs. Not Fate's. Not yours. Her voice shook. So did her hands. The kettle whistled sharply, breaking the moment. Mara turned it off with trembling fingers. Cormac approached her slowly. I'm not trying to claim your child. I'm trying to keep both of you alive. Mara looked up at him, and for the first time, she saw fear behind his strength. Not fear of wolves. Not fear of fate. Fear of losing her. That terrified her more than the knock at the back door ever had. You shouldn't care this much, she whispered. I don't get to choose that, he answered. Not with you. Shayla cleared her throat softly. If it helps, I do think something followed me. Something... watching. Maybe we don't have time to debate. As if summoned by her words, a low howl drifted through the trees, drawn out, mournful, unnatural. Cormac stiffened. That's not Pack. What is it? Mara whispered. A lost one, he murmured. A half-shifted wolf. Unstable, in pain. Shayla's eyes widened. Liam. Mara grabbed the counter for balance. Cormac's eyes flickered with golden light. If it's him, he's close and he's calling to someone. Another howl echoed, closer. Mara's heart plummeted. Shayla trembled. Who's he calling? Cormac looked straight at Mara. You. The wind moaned outside. Snow fell from the eaves like shaken dust. Mara's throat constricted. Why me? Because he smells the bloodline in you, Cormac said grimly. He smells the child. Fate is pulling him and the pack will follow. Shayla gasped. Then we have to hide. Barricade the doors. Something. No, Cormac said, stepping away from the window. No more hiding. What does that mean? Mara demanded. It means, he said, voice raw and steady, I'm done letting fate punish you for my mistake. He pulled off his shirt, revealing a constellation of scars across his chest and shoulders, marks of battles, yes, but also of rituals. Old ones. Binding ones. Shayla stared. What are you doing? Cormac's bones began to tremble beneath his skin. I'm shifting. Mara froze. Cormac, no, you're injured. This den bond won't be corrected until I stand between you and the danger I created. His muscles strained, his spine arched. And if Liam comes, he growled through a half-formed muzzle, he'll have to go through me. Mara reached out instinctively, but Shayla grabbed her arm. Don't touch him. You'll interrupt the change. Cormac dropped to all fours, panting through the agony. Mara, he rasped, half human, half beast, I need you to trust me just this once. Tears streaked her cheeks. I do. His eyes blazing, gold locked onto hers. And then he was gone. Where Cormac had been, a massive dark wolf stood, its fur bristling, breath steaming in the cold air. Aussie. Powerful. Terrifying. And hers. Before Mara could breathe, a cracking branch outside shattered the silence. And a second wolf limped into view, larger, lighter, confused, broken. Liam. His gaze fixed on Mara through the window. And he howled. Cormac snarled back. And the world braced for collision. Chapter 7. Emotional breakthrough. Snow swirled like shaken ash as two wolves stared each other down through the skeletal trees. Cormac massive, dark-furred, burning with purpose. Liam pale, trembling, half-shifted and broken, his mismatched eyes reflecting pain instead of reason. Mara couldn't breathe. Her palms pressed against the window pane as if she could hold the world together by sheer will. The baby fluttered inside her uneasy, sensing the storm outside. Shayla clung to Mara's arm. That's Liam. Oh God, what happened to him? He's unstable, Mara whispered. This shouldn't have happened. He wasn't supposed to. A snarl split the air. Cormac stepped forward first, shoulders rolling like thunder beneath his fur. Liam's answering growl wavered less challenge, more plea. His body sagged in the snow before he lurched forward, drawn toward the cabin, drawn toward her. Mara, Shayla whispered in horror, he's calling to you. I know. But she didn't understand the pull. Didn't want to understand it. Shayla latched onto her tighter. Don't go out there. He's not Liam right now. He's something else. I won't, Mara breathed. I'm not stupid. But a deeper truth lurked. Some small, aching part of her still remembered the man Liam used to be. The one who made promises he didn't keep. The one who said he wanted a family until he didn't. And now fate had twisted him into a creature begging for connection from the woman he'd abandoned. Cormac lunged in front of Liam before he reached the porch, teeth bared, fur bristling. His growl rumbled through the earth beneath Mara's feet. Stay back. She felt the message more than heard it. Liam staggered sideways, claws carving up the frozen ground. His lips pulled back not a snarl, but a tremor, a cry. He's suffering, Mara whispered. We have to help him. Shayla shook her head. We can't. Only another shifter can stabilize a partial shift. Mara stared outside. Then Cormac is barely healed, Shayla said. If Liam attacks, he could. A crack echoed through the forest. A branch snapping or bones shifting. Liam's form convulsed, limbs jerking violently. His face spasmed between wolf and man. Mara's breath hitched. He's shifting again. No, he's breaking. Shayla corrected softly. He's stuck between forms. Cormac snarled, circling the trembling wolf. His posture warned predators, but his eyes, those molten gold eyes, held caution, even pity. Because Cormac knew this pain. Every shifter did. Liam gasped a human sound but distorted, shredded through fangs. Emma Mara. Her name gurgled out from a throat not built for speech. She flinched backward. Oh God. His eyes locked on her. Not Shayla. Her. Mara felt something inside her twist in protest. Why me? Why always me? Shayla swallowed hard. Because your baby carries the stronger lineage now. If Liam senses it, he might think the child is his chance to stabilize. Mara felt sick. He wants my baby to save him? Or to claim the bond he thinks he lost, Shayla whispered. A roar shattered the air as Cormac lunged, slamming into Liam with bone-cracking force. They tumbled into the snow, the dark wolf and the broken one fur flying, snarls echoing through the clearing. Cormac pinned Liam by the throat, but Liam twisted beneath him, driven by instinct or madness. Stop, Mara cried, but the window muffled her voice. Stop hurting each other. Cormac heard her. Cormac always heard her. His attack softened just enough that Liam rolled free, staggering into the trees like a wounded ghost. Snow swallowed his form within seconds. Cormac stood panting in the clearing, sides heaving, fur matted with fresh blood. His head whipped toward the cabin toward her, and he bolted back, leaping onto the porch before shifting midair. He landed on his knees, human again, gasping through the last tremors of transformation. Mara rushed to open the door. Cormac! He caught himself with one hand against the floorboards, sweat slicking his skin, breath fogging in the cold draft. He's not gone, Cormac rasped. He's circling. He's drawn to you, Mara, and he's losing himself. Mara knelt in front of him, hands hovering over him without touching, afraid one wrong move would hurt him more. You're bleeding again. I'll heal. You always say that, she snapped. Because it's always true. But not this time, she whispered. His jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. Shayla paced behind them, frantic. This is my fault. Liam followed my scent to the cabin. If I hadn't stopped, Mara said sharply. This isn't on you. Mara, he left both of us long before tonight. Silence. heavy as snowfall. Cormac finally met her eyes. "There's something else." Mara's stomach dropped. "What now?" "When he said your name." Cormac paused, swallowing. "He wasn't calling you as a man. He was calling you as a wolf without a pack. I'm not, no." He shook his head. "But your child is. And wolves, even broken ones, sense the future of a bloodline." Mara's throat tightened. "The baby is pulling him. And the pack," Cormac said softly. "They will come next." Shayla folded her arms around herself, trembling. "Then we leave now, right? You said the hollow den no." Cormac's voice hardened. "Not until Mara chooses." Mara blinked. "Chooses what?" "Whether she trusts me enough to run with me," he said. "Because once we go, she won't be able to come back to this life. Not ever." The room went still. Snow tapped at the window like time running out. Mara looked between Shayla broken, terrified, and Cormac bleeding, resolute, waiting. She didn't trust fate. She didn't trust destiny. She barely trusted herself. But she did trust the way Cormac stepped between her and danger without hesitation. The way he looked at her not with ownership, but with devotion he wasn't ready to admit. The way her heart stuttered every time he said her name. "Cormac," she whispered, "why does fate keep pushing us together?" He cupped her face gently, reverently, his thumb brushing away a tear she hadn't felt fall. "Because fate is patient. But I'm done waiting." Her breath caught. Behind them, another distant howl cracked the night. Cormac leaned closer. "If you choose me, I will protect you with everything I am. If you don't," his voice broke, "I'll walk away, even if it kills me." Her heart ached. Her past asked her to run. Her future asked her to choose. And fate waited, breathless. Mara closed her eyes. "Cormac," she whispered, "I want—" The door shattered inward. A wolf, massive, pale eyes wild, launched into the cabin. "Liam." Cormac roared. Mara screamed. And destiny struck like lightning. Chapter 8. Love revealed the world, shattered in a flash of fur, teeth, and splintering wood. Liam's massive, pale form barreled through the doorway, sending shards of the door skittering across the floor. Shayla screamed and dove behind the table. Mara stumbled backward, one arm instinctively shielding her belly. Cormac didn't hesitate. He launched himself between Mara and the charging wolf with a roar that shook the cabin walls. His half-healed wounds tore open again as he collided with Liam mid-air, the two wolves slamming into the far wall in a violent tangle of claws and snarls. "Cormac," Mara cried, frozen in horror as blood streaked the floor. Cormac shifted mid-impact half-wolf, half-man, trying desperately to restrain Liam without killing him. But Liam was feral now, lost to the half-shift that twisted bone and instinct. His glowing, fractured eyes locked on Mara. On her belly. Cormac sensed it too. He let out a guttural warning growl and shoved Liam back, but Liam snapped, jaws closing around Cormac's shoulder with brutal force. Cormac's cry, half human, half beast, tore through Mara's chest. Something inside her snapped. "No!" she screamed, grabbing a fireplace poker with shaking hands. Shayla's voice rang out, terrified. "Mara, don't." But Mara was already moving, not away from danger, toward it. Liam whipped around at her approach, eyes crazed, recognizing her not as prey, but as a tether, a calling he didn't understand. His form wavered, contorting, ribs shuddering as human consciousness flickered beneath wolf instinct. "Mara," he rasped, voice gurgling through a half-formed throat. "Emma Mara, help me." The plea froze her mid-step. This was the man she had once loved. The man who had abandoned her. The man who was now broken because something ancient had awakened in him. "Liam," she whispered, tears burning. "Stop. Please stop." For a heartbeat, he hesitated. A single heartbeat. And then instinct won. He lunged for her. Cormac moved faster. Slamming Liam sideways, he pinned the pale wolf beneath his body with a ferocity Mara had never seen. Blood dripped from his shoulder, his arm trembled from the effort, but his stance was unyielding. Mine, the snarl vibrated not a word, but a declaration of soul. Liam writhed, driven by pain, fear, confusion, but Cormac held firm, forcing him into the snow-packed floorboards. Shayla sobbed behind Mara. "He's dying, Mara. His shift is eating him alive." Mara's chest cracked open with grief. "Cormac, we have to help him. We can't save him." Cormac shouted, voice thick with agony as he forced Liam back down. "The shift is incomplete. He's trapped and he's dangerous." Liam's claws scraped at Mara's direction. Cormac snarled, "He wants the child. He thinks your baby can stabilize him, but shifting doesn't work that way." Mara's breath came in sharp bursts. "Then what do we do?" Cormac's answer was a whisper of heartbreak. "We let him go." Shayla's gasp cracked. "No." She crawled toward Liam, tears streaking her cheeks. "No, please, Liam. Look at me, look at me." The pale wolf's snarling slowed. His mismatched eyes flickered toward Shayla, the woman he had chosen, the woman he had broken with his transformation. "Shay," a broken whisper. Shayla cupped his shaking muzzle with trembling hands, human warmth touching the beast. "I'm here. I'm here. Liam, please come back." For a split second, an impossible, fragile second, Liam stilled. Human, wolf, lost. Cormac slowly eased his weight off him without letting go entirely. His golden eyes flicked between Shayla and Mara. "He's listening," Mara whispered. "Shayla, he's listening to you." Shayla nodded quickly, brushing Liam's fur. "It's okay. You're not alone. You don't have to fight it." Liam whimpered. Then, convulsed. His body twisted violently, limbs contorting back into the half-human shape. His scream ripped through the cabin, raw, animal, dying. "No," Shayla cried. "Liam, stay with me, stay." Another spasm. Cormac grabbed Mara, pulling her back, shielding her as Liam's body shifted uncontrollably, bones cracking and reforming in a deadly stutter of half-change. "It's too late," Cormac whispered. "His body can't decide. The dormant blood was never meant to awaken." Shayla clung to Liam's collapsing form, sobbing into his fur. "Don't leave me again. Don't leave me again." The pale wolf gave one last, trembling shudder. And then he went still. Silence echoed. Snow settled in the doorway. Shayla's sobs broke the world apart. Mara pressed a trembling hand to her mouth, tears spilling freely. Cormac gently guided her away, shielding both her body and her heart as grief rippled through the cabin. But as the silence thickened, a low rumble began to vibrate beneath the floorboards. Mara's eyes flew upward. "Cormac, what is that?" He stiffened, nostrils flaring. "The pack." Shayla froze, hands still on Liam's lifeless body. "They're here?" Mara's stomach dropped. "Then we need to leave right now, no," Cormac said, turning toward her with fierce certainty. "No more running." His hand cupped her cheek, warm despite the cold. "You could have died tonight. You could have lost the child. You could have lost everything, but you ran toward danger for someone who broke you." Mara swallowed hard. "I couldn't let him suffer alone." "That's the heart of a true mate," he whispered. "Protective, fearless, compassionate." Her breath caught. "Mara, look at me." She did. And something clicked, like fate aligning, like worlds shifting, like truth releasing a breath it had held far too long. "I love you," Cormac whispered, voice trembling. "I have loved you since the night you opened that door and offered me your scarf instead of fear. I tried to keep my distance. I tried to obey fate's punishment, but I can't anymore." Mara's heart spun wildly in her chest. "Cormac." He pressed his forehead to hers, eyes closing as if bracing for rejection. "You are my mate," he breathed. "The one I should never have rejected. Not fate, not the den. You. And I am done losing you in every life, every timeline, every chance fate gives." Tears blurred Mara's vision. She cupped his jaw and whispered back, "I love you too." His breath shattered. He pulled her into him, holding her as if the world had tried and failed to take her away. Outside, the pack howled. But inside, two hearts finally aligned. Love raw, fragile, fears filled the room like fire. And fate, watching, finally exhaled.